We are navigating life in an extremely fast-paced world.
People are just going about their life without pausing.
They're on an autopilot, basically. Why do people wear this burnout as a badge? Like they feel like, they've done something really good.
Always feeling like we need to be doing more, we need to be making more, we need to be getting that next promotion because we were never modeled the right way to rest. Guilt and shame are the two feelings that are the most present. We're just holding on to so much. And we need these tools to allow it to actually come out of us. It's not my job to convince. The breaking of pattern is a large part of the process.
Yeah.
Our brain has created stories of how we should be existing. People are doing this for the first time, like asking themselves, what do I really want? Can I do it in a way where my nervous system isn't shouting at me? We tend to say things to ourselves that maybe we would never say to a friend. There isn't anything that needs to be fixed 30 days ago.
Yeah.
We're not the same people. What would you say to a friend if they said that they were feeling overwhelmed? Like, can you say that to yourself?
Slowing down is basically not a weakness. It's a form of self-awareness and, self-respect. As it's Mental Health Awareness Week, today we're talking about something that affects all of us, our mental health, and how we are navigating life in an extremely fast-paced world. Joining me today is someone that you've already met on our platform, the incredible Manisha Narula. Manisha is a certified mental health and life coach who's helping people unlearn, reconnect, and reclaim their balance. So grab your chai, sit back, and let's talk about slowing down in a world that never stops. Hi, Manisha. Welcome back to Social Untold. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very excited to be back and I'm doing well. I'm feeling a little tired, but I'm doing well.
You've been traveling a lot, right?
I've been traveling a lot, and since we are talking about mental health, I figured it makes sense for me to also just admit that I am feeling tired too.
And sleepy, yeah. Okay, I know we've already discussed this in our previous video as well, but for our new viewers, can you tell more about how you got inspired and like to join this field? What inspired you? Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, yes, of course. Mental health is quite a large space, and I felt like it's taken me a while to figure out where I fit in amongst all of it too. I came from a different world. My career was in the nonprofit world, and I was working within that for almost 10 years. And I really loved what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I also reached a point in my career where I realized that I was giving so much of myself to it without realizing what the toll was on my body, on my mind.
Yeah.
And I was at a point where I was just doing it day by day without feeling as connected to the work.
Yeah.
So that was a large part of the reason when I decided to switch into this new space. And it wasn't just me feeling overworked, overwhelmed, burnt out in what I was doing, but also realizing that everyone around me also felt that way too. And none of us really had the tools to do anything about it. And then beyond just professional life, even personally, like friends feeling that way, no one's particularly happy with their lives and how things are going. No one feels that way at home either. People are just going about their life without pausing.
They're on an autopilot, basically.
They're on autopilot entirely. And I think that that's how it feels sometimes, even just walking down the street, and you wonder how many people around you are actually just on autopilot. You're doing what you are expected to do.
Yeah. So why do you think that's the case? Because I feel like people are just in a routine that they're following every day, right? Without realizing that they need to actually take a break. Why has that become a common thing amongst everyone? Why do you think that's the case?
I mean, if I look at it from a very big picture
Yeah.
lens, we can blame it all on capitalism.
Really?
And a big part of that really comes down to this expectation to perform, right? It's if we look at this world that's been created for us, and we are basically meant to go through this like process of, okay, I have now completed my education, I have now gotten a job that pays me and allows me to pay my bills, to get a home, get a car, do the things that are kind of just like ticking off these boxes.
Yeah.
And then eventually getting a partner, getting married, having a family. And there's just this sense of life being very framed around these outcomes and results
Yeah.
that we are meant to blindly follow.
Hmm.
And because we are so ingrained in that and we are conditioned to believe that this is how it's meant to be, that we don't realize that there is actually another possibility that's available to us.
Yeah.
Which is a very human thing. I think we all live in a society likely that just makes us believe that this is the only way, because everyone around us is doing that too, and we're a product of our environment. So yes, it's easy to say capitalism, but of course that there's so much depth to that, and there's so
Yeah.
many layers to it.
Yeah.
That actually leads us to just prioritize performance and productivity over anything else.
Yeah. So basically, people feel like nothing is enough for them, right? There's no stop.
Exactly. There's no stop because of this need to perform. We're all like always wanting more.
Yeah.
Always feeling like we need to be doing more. We need to be making more. We need to be getting that next promotion. We need to, outperform another person.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't feel like there's an ending to it.
True. True. So why do you think that people, especially in today's world, why do people wear this burnout as a badge? Like they feel like, they've done something really good. But obviously it's not good for your health and especially your mental health. But is it because of the peer pressure, or I don't know, it could be like you said, set routine for life that, I don't know, previous generations have set upon us, that, there's a particular age to do something. So do you think that has taken a toll on our lives today?
Yes, this conditioning comes from many different places. It is coming from our upbringing. So if we came from a family or a society that's told us that we need to work hard,
Yeah.
and at this point, sometimes working harder is celebrated more than working
Yeah.
smarter. And so we believe that that is just how it needs to happen. We need to be busy at all times.
Yeah.
The type of education we've had is also playing a big role in our conditioning too. I went to business school, and I know that at that point, you're really fed this idea that you need to be top of your game at all times. And that means that you are working long hours, right? And if you're staying in the office past 5 p.m., great.
Yeah.
You're doing your job. And you might not actually be productive if you look at like what the work that's actually being done.
Yeah.
And yet the fact that you've stayed in the office till the evening is going to be seen as a good thing by your boss, perhaps. So that does then end up feeling like this badge of honor, like you mentioned, for a lot of people. And I remember when I just started my career and my boss at that time had said, at your age, I was sleeping in the office. And
that felt like, oh my God, this is so great.
And I couldn't believe that I was being told this, and I felt like I was expected to do that too. And I remember thinking I would much rather go sleep in my own bed than sleep in the office. But we're told we have to work hard, and that exhaustion and burnout is then just part of the game.
So you're a life coach. what positives and negatives have you seen doing this job?
Yeah, so life coaching is also in some places a fairly new thing, and in
Yeah.
other places it has existed for quite a while. And a big part of life coaching is to help someone in some ways like audit aspects of their life and really understand that they have now this choice to pause
Hmm.
and continue with in a more intentional way.
Hmm.
So I really love this work because it allows people that I work with to all of a sudden gain this new perspective on what is possible for them that they
Hmm.
might not have ever considered as a possibility.
Yeah.
And the fact that they maybe for the first time are getting the space to actually reflect on what they want, what they don't want. And no one's
Hmm.
ever asked them this.
Yeah.
I know that most of us might have had the experience of when we finished high school, someone sat us down, maybe it was a school counselor, maybe it was our parent,
Yeah.
sibling, whatever, and they asked us what we wanted to do. And the space we're given in that moment really matters. I know that I wasn't necessarily given that space, and many
Hmm.
people aren't. We're kind of just told, okay, we think this is good for you, or like your sibling is doing this, so maybe
Yeah.
you can also do the same thing. We've been told this space has a good job market, so you should do this,
Hmm.
right? So at that point, we're not really asked the right questions. We're not given the space to actually explore and see
Hmm.
what options there are for us. And life coaching for me has been a space where I can finally give people that space to explore and that space to pause and say, okay, am I actually doing what I wanted to be doing?
Yeah.
And it's a very complex journey in that moment too, because that can bring up a lot for people. That can mean that they're for the first time also really exploring what that conditioning has been for them.
Hmm.
And that has so many layers because it might entail that they are looking at how their family has been with them this
Yeah.
whole time. Uh, the fact that they were maybe forced into something that they never wanted to do. So there's definitely a lot of I would say nuances to life coaching because it sounds nice. It sounds like, oh, look, I'm going to be supported in what my next step is.
Yeah.
But it's also very sensitive and it's scary and it's messy and it's allowing someone to see that this process as a human is not easy to go
Hmm.
through as well.
True. You said it's a sensitive process.
Mm.
I'm I hope that's not the case, but I'm sure there will be a lot of people who are undertrained coaches or
Mm.
like self-claimed life coaches. What do you have to say about the risks involved there? Because they're not 100% certified trained ones, right? So we don't know what sort of information, what sort of help they're giving out to people.
Mhm.
So what risks do you see there?
Yes, the coaching industry is growing a lot right now.
Yeah.
And many people are becoming coaches. They're becoming, even if they're not specifically life coaches, they're becoming healers.
Hmm.
And they might be leading someone through other practices as well. And I think it's beautiful that more people are wanting to support
Yeah.
in some ways like they're supporting humanity, like how can we have more people that are more intentional with the way they live and
Hmm.
have a better sense of purpose. And yet there is harm in that too when you are wanting to support another without realizing the complexity of a human life, because and the sensitivity also comes from that conditioning. It comes from what someone's lived experience has been.
Hmm.
So if someone during a coaching session, as an example, has revealed that, oh, I was actually harassed when I was a child, and that's also why I don't feel as worthy. And that's also maybe one of the reasons why I overwork myself, because
Hmm.
that's the only thing that makes me feel worthy.
Hmm.
The coach or healer, ideally, in that point, should be able to actually support this person through navigating the trauma that they might be sharing too. And a lot of times people aren't necessarily trained to do it, or they haven't fully done that for themselves either.
Yeah.
So there are, I mean, we're not, no one's perfect, right? Like, we can't also expect life coaches and healers to have everything figured out themselves. I think the beauty of this is also knowing that I have done a lot of work on myself, and I understand that there's many layers to it. And now I want to be able to create that space for others to do the same without feeling like I'm a perfect human being, because that's not possible.
Yeah.
That's not possible for me to do.
Hmm.
And I want to also be able to show that to my clients as well, is that we're all imperfect human beings.
Yeah.
And yet I can still have the tools to create the space for someone by asking them the right questions, by helping them process better. So that does need a set amount of training and skill set, for sure.
So basically, if you need a life coach or a mental health coach, please make sure you go to a certified one, do your research, because obviously it's a huge thing, right? So if you need help, great that you've realized you need help. A lot of people don't even realize that. And once you've done that, just make sure you've done your research and go to the right person. Okay, let's talk about boundaries. Why do people feel guilty if they want to rest? They want to do it, but they want to take a stop, but then they feel guilty about it. And that makes them not take that step in their life. Why do you think that guilt is there?
Because we were never modeled the right way to rest, and that if we can rest and we can pause. I know for me personally, it showed up at home, and perhaps many of us can relate to the idea that we, for example, saw our mothers work hard. They are taking care of everything and everyone around them without ever asking for anything for themselves, without feeling like they can rest and pause.
Yeah.
And once we see that as an example at home, we don't feel like we can also give ourselves permission to rest, and we need to operate in that way as well.
Yeah.
And if society is telling us to perform, to be busy, to be productive, to produce things at all times, then naturally any form of rest might make us feel like we don't deserve it. And guilt is a very, like, in some ways it's a dangerous feeling.
It's very dangerous.
It's a very dangerous feeling, and it comes up in so many ways. Guilt and shame are the two feelings that are the most present, especially when I work with my clients as well. And a lot of the clients that I work with are women.
Okay.
And they're women that have never been taught that they can actually take out time for themselves, because we are in a society where women are now, they're working hard, they're in leadership positions. It's awesome that they're seen as people that they can, be in these like top level roles.
Yeah.
And yet they're still doing all the labor at home, the emotional labor that's present for them. They're taking care of everyone still. They're seen as the nurturing ones. So if you're doing everything in front of you, you don't think that you can actually say, hey, I'm going to take a day for myself. Like that is what I deserve and I'm going to do. The chances of that happening are low. And yet when I see women do it, I feel so happy. And also allowing myself to do that now has been a large part of the practice. And to know that when I do it, of course, I still, like, there's a part of me that still feels, like, I shouldn't be doing this. What is that person going to think of me? They're going to think less of me because I said, I can't do this for you right now. I need rest. I don't have capacity. So I'm going to take the day off instead. So they're going to think that I am incompetent or I can't do my job, whatever it is. Like we think that way. And yet it's a big part of our responsibility to now learn how to set those boundaries and to model that for others too around us. And to
Yeah.
know that if we're saying no to something, it means that we're also creating space to say yes to something that matters more.
Yeah. So, just as an example, if someone comes to you, right, and you need to help them, this is their problem, and you need to basically kind of convince them to actually take that step for them, right? To actually convince them to, okay, I am now ready to take a step back. I am now ready to, have rest, whether it's work, whether it's family, I don't know, whatever. What do you actually tell them? Like, how do you convince them to take that step? I mean, that's a huge thing, but
Yeah.
I just want to know, like, I want to get around it. How do you help them break that pattern?
Right. Yes, exactly. Breaking the pattern is the main thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not my job to convince, because it would look different for everyone too. And
Okay.
yet, yeah, the breaking of pattern is a large part of the process.
Yeah.
We work through really understanding where that pattern is even coming from. So actually unpacking, okay, yes, I saw that growing up at home, or this is like the message that was given to me in school. Whatever it is, understanding what that conditioning has actually been. Because without that sense of awareness, we can't really begin to reprogram certain things in our brain.
Yeah.
Because this is just, our brain has created stories of how we should be existing as a human being.
Yeah.
And the brain doesn't necessarily realize that every single belief and mindset that exists is because of our environment, what we were told to do. It's not like we were born and that's just who we became.
Yeah.
It happened over time when we were growing up as children. And this conditioning happens even while we're kids and what we're told when we're 4, 5, 6 years old. But it is also happening when we become teenagers, we enter our 20s. Like, it really continues on. People sometimes think that that conditioning is only happening when you're a child, but it really continues too. So this sense of self-awareness has to begin there. And to really know that, okay, I was conditioned in a way that wasn't necessarily in my control. And now I have an opportunity to reclaim aspects of what I believe and how I act and how I behave in general.
Yeah.
And from there on, we do a lot of work around what is their new sense of vision for their life and what values they really believe in, what matters most to them,
Yeah.
what are their needs in life, so that they can again, a lot of times people are doing this for the first time, like asking themselves, what do I really want?
Yeah.
And that's also not an easy process. For some people, they feel really clear. Others take longer to understand that because that's also uncomfortable to ask yourself, like, yeah, what do I want? But we go through this process, and it's not me telling you what you want, but it's me asking you many, many questions for you to begin to understand what that potential vision for life is.
Yeah.
I run a lot of meditations with people to really sit with that and for them to even visualize, like, let's say 10, 20 years from now, what is a life that they want to be living that feels like is better aligned for them as a person too. And then we understand what is the day-to-day for them that is not aligned with this version that they want to envision for themselves.
Yeah.
So they might say, I want to be living a life that feels more restful, but then you're working 12 hours a day and you are saying yes to everyone and everything, and you literally can't take out any time for rest for yourself.
Yeah.
So then we understand how to actually make small changes in our life.
I was just coming to that in my next question, because you previously spoke about this, the term called slowing down. If you could tell our viewers what it actually means in someone's daily life. So if someone who's never done this before, they would just get an idea of how can they implement it in their personal life.
Yeah, that's a great question, because the concept of slow living, for example,
Yeah.
isn't it sounds all abstract sometimes,
Yeah.
and it makes people feel like it's not for them.
Hmm.
And I really understand that, because there is a part of slow living that makes us feel like, oh, that's only for like the privileged. I've had people say that to me and say, wow, how nice that you can take out time for yourself.
Yeah.
It must be nice. And I used to feel that way.
Hmm.
I would see someone take things slow or say no to something and feel like, wow, must be nice that you can do that.
Hmm.
And yet, the art of slowing down isn't necessarily showing up because, oh, I could go for a long walk, or I could go paint when
Hmm.
I wanted to.
Yeah.
But it's really us training our body to know that we don't have to rush in everything. So, waking up in the morning and you need to start work, which mindset are you waking up with, and how does your body feel when you wake up?
Hmm.
I used to be that person where I would wake up and I would say, okay, I need to be somewhere in an hour. And I'm rushing, like even brushing my teeth and making my breakfast, and my body is like fidgety. It's not able to actually feel calm through this process.
Okay.
And if I had instead just simply taken 2 minutes
Yeah.
to bring awareness to my breath, to bring awareness to how my body is feeling, and then approach that hour from a very different place,
Hmm.
and to know that I can still get all of those things done, but can I do it from a more balanced place?
Hmm.
And can I do it in a way where my nervous system isn't shouting at me
Hmm.
and isn't telling me to calm and be easy on myself?
Yeah.
So, yes, it's easier said. Honestly, I get it. It's easier said than done. And yet, there's a lot of grounding that needs to happen.
Hmm.
Before we can act, we need to also believe that there is a possibility for us to pause, for us to be more aware of how we breathe, be
Hmm.
more aware of how we talk to someone in a way that is like calmer and slower, instead of because once that presence of rush is there, that will ripple into every part of our day and every part of our being. Does that
That
make
makes
sense?
sense. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. How would you define holistic well-being?
Hmm. Yeah, when we talk about mental well-being, a big part of the work also allows us to see that it's not just our mind that we're
Hmm.
working with,
Yeah.
it's every aspect of our being. The body and mind work together
Together. Hmm.
entirely,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes if our mind can even tell us how we're feeling, our body is already communicating that to us. So it might happen in subtle ways, and in order to actually notice that, we have to slow down, right? That's also a big part of it,
To notice those
to
changes, just
notice
notice the
those
signs.
changes. So
Yeah.
in the beginning, I could say that, oh, I'm feeling a little tired, because as I was walking here and I was noticing my body, I could see that, like, oh, yeah, my eyes aren't like fully awake,
Yeah.
or my shoulders are feeling a little more tense than usual.
Yeah.
And those are signs that my body is giving me
Hmm.
that, yeah, I'm feeling a little tired, or it could be any other emotion that comes up.
Hmm.
But the body and mind are always talking to each other.
Yeah.
So that's already like one aspect of holistic well
Hmm.
being. And then I also look at it in terms of, beyond just your body and mind, what are other things that you're doing to take care of yourself that serves your body and mind too?
Hmm.
So even when we say rest, that doesn't mean you do nothing. It doesn't mean I'm just sitting here, I'm laying on my bed. It could be. Maybe I need physical rest and I need my body to just be doing nothing.
Yeah.
It could be. Maybe I need more sleep.
Yeah.
And yet there's other elements of well-being that can be cared for as well. So perhaps mental well-being can also mean that I want to be more creative, and I want to draw, or I want to read, or I want to take a course that stimulates my mind in a different way.
Yeah.
Or I want to connect with other people, and I want to make sure that I'm taking out time for social interactions. So I look at it as different buckets that we're filling in our life.
Yeah.
And if we have our mental well-being bucket, we have our physical well-being bucket,
Yeah.
then we have our emotional well-being bucket. Like, can you even notice what emotions you're feeling? Can you communicate those emotions to others? We have our spiritual well-being. Like, are you feeling connected to something greater than yourself? Some of us might also want to take out time to even pray, for example, and that's part of our well-being.
Yeah.
Then you have your social well-being bucket. So it's nice to be able to look at things separately and know that they're also very interconnected.
Connected, yeah. Okay. Tell me about one thing. Even when you're out somewhere, right? You're at a party or wherever. How do one make sure that if they're somewhere, they're there emotionally and socially? Because sometimes people are there, but there's just no emotion. They're just lost in their mind. How do we manage to do that together?
Yeah. This might also be contextual, right? And in certain situations, maybe you're not able to fully have both present, and perhaps then you need to see what are you able to do before that to bring a sense of awareness and acceptance around it.
Yeah.
So let's say I need to go to a party tonight, and it's a family gathering. I
Yeah.
have to do it.
Yeah.
It's like a social obligation, of course.
Yeah.
And then I know that there's less choice for me involved, which means it's also a bigger burden, perhaps, and there's more emotions involved.
Yeah.
And this isn't a situation where I can be at the social gathering and tell someone that, I'm feeling a little off, but I'm here anyway, because of the context. So what can I do before that? So I might then, before I even go to the social gathering, maybe I decide, okay, for 10 minutes, I'm going to sit in silence with myself.
Yeah.
And say, okay, I know that this is an obligation and I have to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm not feeling entirely up for it, but Manisha, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it in a way that still feels present. I might write some things to allow me to feel fully present for this. I might call a friend, tell them how I'm feeling, and then go into this event. So what can I do even before to set this like grounding for myself?
Yeah.
And then the other option is, if the context or event or social situation allows you to express how you're feeling.
Yeah.
That would be the ideal scenario, but we know that that's not possible everywhere. Which is why I say it's very contextual. Because after a sense of awareness comes this like permission to express. Can we then communicate what we are aware of? So if I can then be at a gathering with my friends and let them know that, hey, I'm here because being here really matters to me, but I want to share that I've had a hard day, so I may not be fully present, and I just want to say that to all of you. And that completely changes things. That versus you showing up, you clearly not being fully present.
Yeah.
And your friends can notice, and they're also wondering, like, what's up with her today? And you haven't said anything. And then they're wondering, like, she just doesn't care about us anymore. Like, that's because that's what we do as humans.
True.
We assume things then.
Yeah, true.
Without sometimes even having the skill or tool to ask that person. Because maybe my friends also don't know how to ask me and say, hey, you seem a little off. Are you okay?
So communication is the key.
Communication is super key. I think if we're talking about well-being, so much of it comes down to being aware and then that open channel to communicate.
Okay, I want to know something you just mentioned earlier about writing it down,
Mm.
writing your thoughts down. I haven't done that
Mm.
personally ever. So I want to understand how that works. How does that help? Because I can
Mm.
understand if you're talking to someone, like
Yeah.
talking to a friend, right? That makes sense to me. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're writing something in a diary and just putting out your thoughts, I'm just not sure how does that work? How does that help?
Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of journaling,
Yeah.
and I find that writing in general and journaling in general
Mm.
is activating a part of our often subconscious part of our brain that doesn't have the space to be expressed.
Hmm.
And yet it's a skill that has to be nurtured over time for it to eventually allow you to process things and express things.
Yeah.
So it can happen in many different ways. So it might happen when you specifically went through a situation that needs to be processed more.
Yeah.
So you got into a fight and you are feeling all sorts of things, but you don't necessarily have a friend to talk to right away and
Hmm.
you need to process.
Yeah.
So you can begin just by writing how you are feeling. So I might say, I got into a fight, I'm feeling angry, and share, like, actually write about what that situation was and
Hmm.
how my body was impacted, how my mind was impacted. And so much of it is also allowing us to just release, because if we're not releasing, then it sits in our body and it almost just becomes like a part of it. So for
Yeah.
example, if something, and this is in a bigger context, like something happened to us when we were a child and we've never allowed ourselves to process it,
Hmm.
that experience is still sitting in our body. It's still stored there.
Hmm.
And this is also when it shows up as like physical pain in our body. So some of like, I know that I have had a lot of like shoulder and neck pain, and this often gets activated when I'm stressed.
Hmm.
And I know that if I were able to take out some time to just like process what's making me stressed and write about it,
Hmm.
fill up one page, just anything,
Yeah.
then that right away will actually impact the physical pain that I feel too.
Okay.
So this might be a specific situation, or this might just be every day you're taking off 5 minutes
Hmm.
to write whatever comes to mind. Anything to just clear your mind
Hmm.
and allow yourself to start in a way that feels more fresh, and it's almost like a reset. So there's this concept of morning pages that is introduced in a book called The Artist Way, and they say, okay, start your morning every single day, write 3 pages, fill it up with anything. You could even
Okay.
just be sitting and saying, I notice a tree in front of me, and this is what the tree is making me feel.
Hmm.
Then eventually that might go into, like, oh, I'm kind of nervous about today. Whatever is coming to mind.
Yeah.
And yet, this act of doing these morning pages and writing is going to allow you to start this day now in a much lighter way, that you're not holding and storing things inside of you. You're
So
able to
you've
just let it
basically
release.
taken off the weight, something like that,
Yes,
right?
yeah, exactly. Which is like what so many of us are carrying, is this weight on us.
Yeah.
And we can't always expect that someone else will be able to hear us.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing a therapy session every week, awesome, then
Hmm.
you have that. But even a therapist will tell you to then go write things.
Yeah.
Like, writing is a tool that can work for most people,
Hmm.
even in small chunks as well.
Okay.
Like, it might even be asking yourself one simple question every day of how am I feeling, or what am I grateful for, or what did I learn today. It could be one simple question that you
Hmm.
write a few sentences on
Yeah.
to, and then it allows that whatever weight you're carrying to release.
That makes sense. Now I understand how it works.
I highly recommend carrying a notebook wherever you go.
Yeah.
And then whenever you're feeling something, just like jotting down words. And it doesn't even have to be a full sentences. Sometimes I just open my book and I draw and I doodle something. And then that right away also allows me to enter a different state of mind and feel like, okay, something has come out. Like, I think that's the main thing, is like we're just holding on to so much. And we need these tools to allow it to actually come out of us.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to somebody who has just realized that something's going wrong in their life, right? They're in a wrong routine, they need to break the pattern. What would you advise them? What steps can they take? Because this is the first for them.
It's okay.
Yeah. It's okay.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Because we tend to be very hard on ourselves. I feel like we're often the hardest on ourselves. And we will say things to ourselves that maybe we would never say to a friend. And is that something that we can focus on to begin with? Is that there isn't necessarily anything wrong with you.
Yeah.
There isn't anything that needs to be fixed. And how can you just give yourself this like self-compassion and show yourself some empathy that it's okay. Like, we're human. This is a human experience. It's all messy. Anyway, no one's perfect.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing I would say, is that it's okay. Like, no one's broken here. And then beginning to look at why they think certain things are not working for them. Because it is, you and I might have we might both say, hey, we want to wake up earlier.
Yeah.
But we might both have different reasons for wanting to do it. And we might have different intentions and what's actually driving us in that too. So we both need to connect to our own sense of why behind it. So you might have your own why, but I perhaps don't really connect with it.
Yeah.
I might have my own and you don't really connect with it.
Yeah.
So understanding, okay, why do you even want to make certain changes in your life? And what's like this deeper desire inside of you, this like fire that kind of lights you up.
Yeah.
And then eventually looking at the small ways it can show up too, because we can't really make big changes right away. And this also changes from person to person too. But for me, I might say, okay, I want to wake up earlier, and that means that I need to change something else in my day. I can't just magically begin waking up earlier tomorrow.
Yeah.
I need to make another change. I need to sleep an hour earlier. And then for me to sleep an hour earlier, I need to watch less TV.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. It's all connected, right? We can't just say, tomorrow I'm going to start waking up earlier. But we have to then really audit every aspect of our routine, our habits, what's working, what's not working, what's giving us energy and what's draining us. So a part of the process is even understanding all of those pieces. And writing, again, I sometimes have my clients write, okay, these are the 5 things that are giving me energy.
Yeah.
So they might say like meeting my friends every Friday, or going to the gym, whatever it is. Like, these are the things giving me energy, and then these are the things that are not giving me energy. So having to work till 9 p.m. or whatever it is, and then seeing what's possible to really change. And even if it's just one thing, like one thing, so that if you feel like there's a space for you to even make a 1% shift, that already is doing a lot for us. And for that change to happen, and then for us to believe it's possible, will then allow more shifts to happen, because the confidence will eventually build over time too. Is that, oh yeah, I did manage to wake up half an hour earlier tomorrow.
Yeah, that makes sense. Tell me, there's a lot of stress these days, right? Whether it's personal or professional. But if someone who's going through stress, is it advisable to stay home? Because people choose to do that. They want to stay in their bed, do nothing. Is that the right practice, or it's best to just go out, like you said earlier, do anything that you like, paint or go for a walk. Because I personally feel like if you're stressed, staying at home and doing nothing, and obviously you're gonna think about the whole situation again and again, that's definitely not helping you. So what would you tell those people? How can they break that pattern as well? Because I think that really makes situation worse.
Yes.
Have you ever done that yourself?
Oh my God, a lot. A lot.
Okay.
Which is why I feel like I want to start off by saying that it's okay to sulk,
Yeah.
but give yourself a limit maybe. And give yourself, let's say, for the next 2 days, I'm going to allow myself to be in bed and sulk. And then after that, some changes will be made. So first, it also depends on the extent of the stress too, because the word stress is also quite general sometimes, and it's impacting everyone in a very different way.
Yeah.
So this might be your day-to-day stress, but this could also be like intense exhaustion or burnout. This could be depression as well. So really understanding like what is your pattern around this stress as well.
Yeah.
Like, is this happening to you every few weeks? And you feel like, okay, then there needs to be something much deeper that needs to change in your way of being too. So that is like the first thing that I would look at. And then, yeah, I think it has to be like, are you giving yourself permission to be messy? Because that's also part of the self-compassion act too, is that, okay, give yourself a day or two to be at home. And then small changes once again. And I also don't feel like it can all happen alone. Asking for help is a big aspect of it. I've been in situations like that before. And I had friends later on that said, like, why didn't you tell us? You know, sometimes when we are stressed or we're just feeling a lot, we tend to also self-isolate. And then we don't tell anyone what we're going through. And then there's no opportunity for someone to support you.
Yeah.
Because we also struggle to feel supported and to ask for help too.
Yeah.
So knowing that we don't have to do it alone. So now I've been in situations where I've had a really off day, and then I allow myself to just like feel it all, be in bed. Even while I'm in bed, like, am I overthinking everything? But like, how am I actually processing it, right? I might actually journal. I might do certain things while I'm there too.
Yeah.
Or I might just watch a whole bunch of movies and like allow myself to shut my brain off, and that's okay. But now I sometimes I will call a friend and say, hey, I think I need to get out. Like, tomorrow, can we go for a walk? And just put that out there, even if it feels really uncomfortable, just to have that sense of accountability. Or maybe even if they can't go with me, say, I need to go out tomorrow. Can you call me at this time to make sure I left the house?
Yeah.
Even if it's for 10 minutes. So small steps. This is, of course, if this is like a stress that you're able to navigate. If there's certain other aspects of it, then it might involve reaching out for more support.
Yeah.
Maybe even professional support in that matter too.
Okay, let's talk about change. How do you differentiate the inner transformation versus the outside transformation that you see? Okay, outside steps, people show up, they leave house, they show up, see their friends. I don't know, it could be anything else, but even people, the changes that you recommended, going out for a walk, talk to someone, if they manage to do it, but inside it's not making any difference, how do you see that? Because it's like they could be doing all the right steps on the out, but inside it's not making any difference. What do we do then?
Hmm. I'm curious to dive deeper into this question as well.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm wondering like if there is a certain example that comes up for you too, because I see where the question is coming from, because sometimes we're just doing things.
Yeah.
Sometimes even just taking care of yourself becomes an autopilot. You
Hmm.
know, we're talking about being in this autopilot
Yeah.
zone, and then someone might have their gym routine and they, are like, look, they have their self-care routine. I
Yeah.
say self-care in that way because it's become a trend
Yeah. True.
without necessarily the depth and the substance that
Yeah.
needs to be there. Like
Yeah.
maybe it's better for you to actually talk about your emotions versus taking that hot bath.
Yeah.
Like that will actually serve you more. Not
Yeah.
to say baths are not awesome, they are,
Yeah.
but
I feel they're amazing.
it's just that like what is self-care nowadays like has
Yeah.
become very confusing, which is the reality is that you might be doing all these things
Hmm.
and yet it's not making a shift within you.
Hmm.
And yet, who is to judge whether it's making a shift within you or not? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, because these shifts can also happen in very subtle ways. The fact that you allowed yourself to go for a walk, which you might not have usually done,
Hmm.
is changing something inside of you, is now putting in a new belief in your mind that you can, like, you are capable of taking yourself out for 10-minute walk outside,
Yeah.
and perhaps next time you might not wait till the second day to do it, or the next time you might go for a longer time, the next
Hmm.
time you might call a friend and invite them to, and there'll be added aspects to it. So it is making a change, but perhaps not noticeable right away.
Yeah. It could be that someone's doing the right steps, but maybe it's too early to judge whether it's working or not. Just give yourself more time.
Yes, yes, which is kind of what we all
Hmm.
need. No,
Yeah.
like we need more time, and we can't just take out the stress right away. I
Yeah.
mean, I think about my phase of being burnt out, and it felt like it took me years to come out of it. Like, yes, I was operating normally, I was doing things, I was traveling, and yet I wasn't able to work in the same way for a few years
Hmm.
because I had spent years working my butt off.
Yeah.
And I took me a while to recover from it. So sometimes we don't even realize that recovery actually needs time and
Hmm.
patience.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I asked you a question, and while you were answering that,
Yeah.
I actually kind of realized, okay, maybe it's too early to ask those questions because obviously things won't change in,
Mm.
a quick span of time. You need time and effort.
You need time and
Yeah, to see the
effort, yeah.
results.
And I
Yeah.
often, even for that reason, don't always do like a one-off coaching session either.
Yeah.
We might do it if you need to get clear on one aspect of your life.
Yeah.
But I say, we need to work for a certain amount of sessions, for a certain amount of time for you to begin to make changes, for you to
Hmm.
begin to notice those
Yeah.
changes. You can't just go to one therapy session and think that everything is going to be solved.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the
Yeah.
reality. And yet, you can also know that we are always changing.
Hmm.
We are always changing. Like, we were not the person that we were last year, 6 months ago, or 30 days ago.
Yeah.
We're not the same people. And that can also happen. Like, 30 days is actually plenty of time for us to make a small change in our lives.
Hmm. In your experience, what have you seen changes, around the conversations that has been happening around mental health and well-being? Has it evolved, and how much has this evolved?
Hmm. It is 100%. It has evolved,
Yeah.
absolutely. The fact that people are even talking about it,
Yeah.
right? That is also such a big step.
Yeah. Because I
And
remember a few
yeah.
years back, it used to be like a taboo.
Yes.
Mental
Yes.
health? Are you serious? Let's not talk about it. People
Yes.
used to say that. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's completely changed. I mean, even thinking about it culturally, it's beautiful to be able to see like a South Asian woman say, hey, I am feeling this way,
Hmm.
which wouldn't be the possibility
Yeah.
necessarily a few years ago. So I really appreciate the way it's evolving, and the ability for people to express, for someone to say, I am going to therapy. Like, that feels refreshing in
Yeah.
some ways.
Hmm.
I would say it's also still very limited to maybe our generation.
Hmm.
We can't necessarily expect that from our parents' generation.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for me to have conversations with my parents is still like, they understand the work I do and my need to be able to speak about it, and
Hmm.
for me to even ask them how they're feeling and wanting a more in-depth response.
Yeah.
But that expectation can't be fully there as well.
Hmm.
But there's so many shifts that have happened. I think the pandemic has been a really large reason for it
Hmm.
too. I feel that collectively, like, the whole world went through something that
Yeah.
shook everyone up, that most people realized that we had to now operate from a different place,
Hmm.
and we had to understand, like, oh, why are things not working in my life,
Hmm.
and what can I actually do about this. And that also, I feel, in a big way across the world, has actually created space for people to talk about their mental well-being more.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We're coming to an end to the podcast. Do you have anything to say to people who right now are feeling stuck or are overwhelmed in their life? What do you have to say to them? Like any advice?
It's interesting you say stuck or overwhelmed,
Yeah.
because I think those two are the most common things.
Hmm.
Like, this sense of not knowing where you're going, or feeling like there's just too much
Yeah.
going on and happening around you. And I think, first, just knowing that that's very common to
Hmm.
feel, and that most likely every person on this planet has at some point felt stuck or overwhelmed,
Hmm.
and that we can't expect those feelings to just disappear. It's the tools that we can have to actually navigate those
Yeah.
feelings overall. So I would first say that. And again, I think I had mentioned this before, is like, for them to know that there's nothing wrong with you.
Hmm.
That if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, that's
Yeah.
nothing wrong. It's the system as well that we live in. So when we talk about the conditioning that's happened, the way society operates, the way you're expected to perform, there's no sense of this is your fault as an individual.
Yeah.
It's the system. And that's what puts us in a survival mode,
Hmm.
because that then feels more important, is we just need to survive. We just need to survive. So nothing needs to be fixed in that sense.
Hmm.
And with that, the first thing that I would encourage someone to do is to really see how they can build that sense of awareness on where that overwhelm or stuck feeling is coming from.
Yeah.
Can you sit with yourself? Can you sit with a friend? Can you sit, if needed, with a professional? Can you sit with your journal?
Hmm.
Can you just sit in stillness and silence to understand, and to actually hold that feeling, not to like make it go away right away and feel like, I don't want to feel it.
Yeah.
Because the more we carry this, I don't want to feel it, and the resistance builds up, the less we're actually able to release it in a lighter way.
Hmm.
So it's okay to hold it as a friend,
Yeah.
and to say it's okay that you're feeling stuck. Like, what would you say to a friend if they said that they were feeling overwhelmed? Like, can you say that to yourself?
Hmm.
Like, like, what would you say to a friend that was feeling overwhelmed?
I mean, I'm the sort of person who would just be like, why are you even feeling that?
Hmm.
I like, I'm a very different person. I don't know what I would actually I know for the fact that I can't say anything right to them because I'm a little more, I don't know how to say it. I become a little aggressive because I see things. It has happened before. A friend of mine was going through some rough patch and she wanted to talk to me, obviously, which I did, but then I did tell her off as well because I didn't think it was something that she was making, a huge deal of it. But now when I think about it, it could be nothing to me, but it could be a huge thing
Everything
for
to
her.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're asking me, I'm not the right person to ask. I tell my friends, don't ask me because I'm gonna tell you off for feeling that.
Hmm. Yeah, which is interesting to hear you say that because that then comes from your own conditioning. Perhaps people also, when you were going through maybe a rough patch, didn't say, hey, it's okay. And perhaps you were also told to deal with it. Like, this is not that big of a deal. Like, deal with it.
Yeah,
I might be making an assumption.
could be. I have to dig deep in my past life.
So I feel that if that empathy perhaps isn't being shown from others, like
Yeah.
how can that happen for yourself? Because what you mentioned is that, okay, this may not be a big deal for me, but this is a big deal for my friend,
Yeah.
is actually the essence of this, is that we are all carrying very different needs because of our own experience. So
Hmm.
I might I might really struggle with feeling lonely, for example.
Hmm.
But for another person, that's actually not that big of a deal
Hmm.
because they come from a very different experience
Yeah.
and how they grew up.
Yeah.
So it's like acknowledging that this is my experience. I don't have to compare it with anyone else's. Like, oh, like, why am I feeling this way if they're not feeling this way? We tend to
Hmm.
do this right away. Is why am I feeling stressed and stuck when that person with the same experience is not feeling stressed or stuck?
Hmm.
They have a very different, like, we know nothing about what happened in their life before that, perhaps.
True.
Right? The reason why, even as siblings, we have very different experiences, even though we have the same parents and we were
Hmm.
in the same house growing up,
Yeah.
yet we saw things differently, we were treated differently, that we grow up having very different needs and very different ways of processing, very different emotions. That, I mean, that's been a big part of my experience of understanding this too, is because my sister went through a completely different experience than I did, and we then had to understand each other
Hmm.
without assuming that it was the same
Yeah.
because we grew up in the same house anyway.
Yeah.
So I think so much of this practice is just sitting with yourself and allowing yourself to really believe that this is okay, this is my experience, and that I get to just become aware of this more and give myself compassion for this more.
Hmm.
But that means that you have to be willing to pause. This space only comes when you're willing to pause. If you're going about your day like, I gotta get there, I gotta do this work, I gotta help this person, I gotta,
Yeah.
then you are not giving yourself the chance to pause. And that's hard work.
So
That's hard
basically,
work.
people need to understand that slowing down is basically not a weakness. It's a form of self-awareness and, I don't know, self-respect.
Yes, yes. I would love, I mean, I feel that if we could imagine a world where everyone understood that and
Hmm.
was able to embody that, and everyone around us was able to understand their bodies and then say how they're feeling, like, can you imagine that kind of world? I
I wish we would have that.
it would be insane. And for people to be okay with being sensitive with each other and be okay with, yeah, being in silence with a friend and just listening to each other,
Hmm.
really listening, not feeling like, oh, I need to give you advice, like just listening. Like, we would be in a very different world. And that's why I do what I do.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here, Manisha, and sharing so many insights with such honesty and heart. Thank you.
Thank you. This was really nice. Thank you.
It was great having you again.
Thank you.
And to our viewers, if you enjoyed today's episode and if you found it helpful, please do like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And share this episode with someone who you think would actually benefit from this information. We'll see you in our next episode. Take care. Bye.